Hi, y'all. It's Bridget Cutshall with Real Things Living. Today, my guest is Fred Talisman. He is a business consultant and result-based marriage counselor for over 25 years, and he is known for his mastery as being a relationship coach. Can you say hi, Fred?
Hi, good to be here.
Thank you. I'm so glad we connected. I love hearing from different people who have dealt with like as a coach and a counselor and things like that because you see so many stories or hear so many stories and you help them. First thing that came to mind as we're talking is what drove you to go into this path of, I understand a business consultant, but what drove you to be a marriage counselor?
When I was 16, I had my Mr. Miyagi, like from Karate Kid. But he didn't teach me karate. He taught me about spirituality and about communication and psychology. And he was a life coach,
Oh, wow.
and that inspired me to be a life coach, like him, help people the way he was helping people.
He was a good role model.
Yeah,
That's the kind of people you need around you, right? You're gonna be doing things. It's not just about, like you said, karate. It's about how it's gonna make you that and doing that practice, right? Make you a better person.
right. And then I had a giant shift several years, many years ago. I came home from a meeting and I noticed all the art on the walls was gone, and I realized that we had been burglarized.
Oh,
So
wow.
first I searched for my wife to make sure she was okay, but she wasn't home, luckily. And then I
Right.
was looking around the house to see what else had been taken. I found the note, and the note was from my wife. And she said, "I love you. I can no longer be with you. Um, all further communication between you and my attorney. Here's her name and number."
Oh my God, I just got massive chills.
And I was devastated. I felt humiliated and ashamed because how could I, as a marriage counselor, not even make my own marriage work?
Wow.
And we'd been to marriage counseling. We had been to two well-known marriage counselors. Each time it made things worse. And so I became a man on a mission to find out what I was never trained on as a therapist, which is
Right.
how to make relationships really work and last.
Right.
That
That
became
is
my
something that
specialty.
was definitely unexpected for you. And I don't know what the issue was, but that was definitely a moment of awakening, maybe.
It was, and I practice what I teach. I've been with my current wife for 28 years,
Oh, wow.
and I'm living what I'm teaching. Big believer.
It's- you definitely got it right. You go practice what you preach, is what they say,
Yes.
and I'll walk the talk. I think there's different analogies out there. I think it's you've learned, during those experiences, definitely how to communicate better with people. I'm sure you're much younger when this situation happened to you, and unfortunately, life does throw things at us, but you found a way through it. And it goes back to me what you mentioned, the spirituality that you learned. Maybe that helped you reflect. And so now, based on your experiences, you're helping others, right? You're helping others. It's kind of like the being the art of being positive. Is that what trying to find the situation on something?
Yeah, I've helped thousands of people at this point to be able to improve and or save their relationship and keep their families together.
I'm a child of I should say child. My mom was married 3 times before I was 17. So that affects the kids. I think part of it's being part of a military family, military brat. It's so common for some reason, I guess because the spouses don't communicate properly. And that is really the baseline, the key in the relationship, right? It's to communicate how to do it and be consistent with it. And can you go a little deeper into that? What you recommend?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the single most important thing to do in relationship is to be a master of timing. There's only one timing that works to communicate with anybody, but especially in a relationship and especially in parenting, and that's to only communicate when you are in positive emotion.
Gotcha. And definitely from my experience, you probably agree with this. You need to like pause if you're receiving some negative information. If you kind of need to pause and try not to react because it could escalate the situation.
Especially if you're the target of it, yes.
If you're the target of it, but it's easier said than done. And I have not, like I said, I learned as I have reflected on my mom's situation. I didn't understand what she was dealing with, right? Because I was a kid. And I think that's again, I looked back on that and I was frustrated. Why is this happening? But it made her, she learned through that, made her a better person down, the long way, not the short term. But I think also we need to look, I mean, you probably agree with that, look at the long term.
Absolutely. I'm a far better husband now than I was to my first wife.
You were right young and we all make mistakes and
Yeah,
we just try to me, I've learned to small steps help, right? Taking rather than massive change, change happens all the time, and we can adapt better if we take smaller pivots. Is that the right word?
sure. Part of it, smaller pivots, part of it is integrity with yourself. A lot of people think that relationships 50-50, which is an approach doomed to fail because people
Yes.
use that, it's a rationale for really bad communication and really bad behavior. It comes down to I'll treat you good if you treat me good. I'll treat you bad if you treat me bad. Doomed to fail.
That's not a pass to win. It's and so based on what you said, how to negotiate situations, negotiate is that the right word to win-win for everybody. It is, it's not about me and you, but what would you recommend in your life, not just your just in general, communicating with other people?
Great. So I think negotiation is the perfect word. So I teach people in relationship no sacrifice and no compromise. Because most people use the word compromise as a synonym for sacrifice, which is totally appropriate for children, with your children and with your pets. But in relationship, when people start making sacrifices in their mind, they wind up holding that person accountable for debts and agreements never made. They wind up feeling resentful.
Oh,
Resentment is a relationship killer. When I teach my clients to be able to create what I call mutually satisfying agreements, which is agreements work equally well for both people, there's no resentment. So
right.
that's my version of win-win.
Yeah. Do you have like a recommend they write this down? Rather than because they can remember it properly if it's something in writing. I was just curious.
That's really smart. I absolutely do. I think that all couples, any kind of agreement whatsoever, at any level, that they should write it down.
Because
Because and they should put it in a shared document
yeah.
because what happens across times our memory changes.
Yes,
You can have like endless fights about the different memory, what was agreed upon. When it's written down, it's like a 30-second disagreement.
correct. And I also am a believer and based on, my life experiences, you also need to make sure you're taking care of yourself, right? I think as a parent, it can be hard. That's why I learned so much from my mother, because you could make yourself sick and it could just put tension in a relationship. So how to be consistent with self-care? What do you recommend?
I recommend to clarify what's your ideal self-care and schedule it further out than any other commitment to anybody.
Right.
And then make sure that you're doing it put it in your non-negotiable category. The only things we do consistently are in our non-negotiable category.
Ah, I like
So
that.
whether self-care is adequate sleep or whether it's exercise or whether it's I'm trying on healthy eating, then whatever your self-care is, you want to be able to do.
And it also depends on, you have to make time for it, how much time you got for it. Depends on everybody's situation is different. And as you're talking about the exercise, it popped into my mind. I think you should do exercise that you enjoy, not what someone's telling you to do, right? That can
Sure.
cause an argument.
Yeah, well, there's countless ways to get cardio. So you want to
Right.
do the kind of cardio that you love.
Right. It's important. One thing I think is helpful in a relationship too is if if you're too much the same, right? There could be some more conflict. Is that just, am I wrong? I think the those that I've been married to my husband for a long time, but we're so different, but yet we have some similarities, but we're very different especially on the um astrological sign.
Sure. Well, yeah, in every relationship, you have two unique individuals with different views about most things, even about shared experiences.
That's yep,
So what I teach people how to do is to find out the other person's viewpoint,
right.
which is to ask neutral questions, questions that don't bias the answer with your words or your voice tone. Like, what was that like for you? What was your experience of that? What's not a neutral question, which I learned the hard way, is how do you feel about that?
Yet the words that you're using matter.
Yeah, because we're only asked feeling questions when the questioner assumes negative feelings. When you
Right,
ask the question, like, what's your experience of that? You're going to get a feeling answer, which is great, but now you're not biasing the answer with your words or your voice tone.
right. I could tell that you definitely you're calm when you're responding because you've got a lot of you practice. You gotta definitely, it's practice, practice, practice. And it's okay to make some errors, but then you need to make condolences for that, right? If you need to, I think, apologize if you do screw up.
Yeah, I think it's really important to apologize, and
Mhm.
I think it's really important that you integrate. Because I realized early on that people that I'm working with aren't going to practice what I'm teaching them. So, although I'm a giant fan and practitioner of practice, so I teach them integration. I
Integration, yes.
take notes when I'm working with you. If we have contact with anybody, review those notes on your phone, keep them on your phone, and recommit you to those skills and those concepts with that individual. If you're doing them all the time with everybody, when you need them with your partner or your children, they'll be available. They become part of how you think and part of how you communicate.
It definitely helps, as what you're saying, create a calmer environment. You need to to sounds like you're like pausing, right? And you're making sure you're gonna go forward and meeting some goals that you set. You probably have to set goals too, with usually that's in line with your partner.
Well, it's good to first clarify your own goals
Yeah,
and then to create goals together,
right.
because then you maintain a sense of self.
Right. And one other thing that popped into my mind, I'm just asking you so many questions. Sorry, is
Great. I
I
love
just
questions.
yeah, I could tell you're used to talking to some people, lots of one-on-one. I'm sure you've got some beautiful conversations that you remember. And so what if it kind of sounds like the relationships sometimes if it's not might not work out if only one person is trying, correct? What is a recommendation to keep moving forward?
Well, great questions. So, um, sometimes people call me in crisis and they say that, help my friend. I know you can help me, but I think it's too late. And my partner's left, and they said they're done. They won't get any help with me. So, it's just a hopeless situation. Am I a fool to keep trying? And so my response is there's one timing when a relationship is definitely absolutely guaranteed over. And that's when the person in your position gives up.
Right.
And 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 I've worked with situations so dire that I think that even with my help, they're not going to be able to save the relationship.
Oh, wow.
I've kept that opinion to myself, and they've often taken what I taught them and saved the relationship. I can't know for sure. I don't think anybody else can either. So it takes one person to save a relationship and or to fix a relationship. Most of the relationships I fix and or save, I only get to work with one person. The other person won't be part of the process.
Right. They probably don't know some these conversations are happening with you, maybe.
Right. It's
That's
often it's often kept private.
well, that right. I think that is it's good. You're just helping people. We are just, I think, in our time in this world, there's just so much, people feel overwhelmed with so much information. Sometimes I think I feel that way too. I just don't want to have, but that's why you have to take time and just listen and pause. And I think the taking care of yourself, I'm going back to that because I'm a big believer of that. because you're going to be more likely to not respond negatively if you are taking care of yourself. And that's just my perspective.
I'm a big fan of taking care of yourself. That's our responsibility to ourselves.
Correct. And it's not otherwise, it's you that's, you know, people rely a lot on a parent or just like me. I'm the sibling that's in the middle, and a lot of them come to, so I'm just one of those naturally, I just want to help people, but then that can be overwhelming too. So you can't say yes to everything. And how do you say no sometimes if you don't think you can help them?
Oh, great question. Well, um, in terms of my professional work, um, that that I think that I know how to teach people how to make things work, especially in their relationship. So I say I'm going to give you a lot of skills, and if you do them, they're likely to work, and if not, they're not. And the worst case scenario is you have great skills for your next relationship.
That's true. We have to learn from our experiences, and I think as we're in our different chapters in life, like you and I, yeah, I don't say older. I like to say chapter in life because I like books. I like to use the book analogy. But I've learned so much. And you just got to reflect on that and just like, wow, we all have built resilience over our experiences, and that will help you make changes that are needed, and to not beat yourself up when you reflect on mistakes that you made. Just like you don't know what happened really deep down with your first marriage, right? Or maybe you do. You don't have to share that, but
Yeah, I do know what happened. I just didn't have, I didn't have the skills or the training I needed to make the relationship work long term. Yes,
right.
I'm so committed. That's why I'm so committed to learn what it takes and then just and to pass it on to my clients and to live it in my own life, in my own
Yes.
relationship.
And I think that's something we should be more open to is just not doing everything by yourself either. It's not just a marriage, but just relationship and business. It's just kind of I I see a lot of people try to be solo, you know, and you're not going to have a long term of change because you're going to get frustrated. And it's good to have a support system. I think that's why relationships in work and at home are important.
I agree. And it's also important to have really good coaching.
Yes,
I've had
coaching,
some amazing coaching in my life that's made all the difference in my ability to get things done and the quality of my life.
it is true. And it's very popular now to have coaches in your life, but and some specialize in different aspects. Like you're specializing more in relationships.
I am.
And that to me is the platform for your life in general. It's relationships, being around people.
Sure. Absolutely.
This is really interesting. I'm just trying to think about. I'm very fortunate. I mean, I've been married for 30, it'll be 36 years coming up.
Wow. Good for you.
There's times we want to probably choke each other. I'm just kidding. But I think it has to do with we we're so different, you know what I'm saying? We're very different. And I've noticed people that have married a long time, they know how to respond properly. Trust me, there are moments, it's not perfect, but we support each other, and he knew I could help him and I could, needed him in certain aspects. We all have different skill sets too, and I think we should apply that to a relationship. I joke that I'm good at cooking and doing laundry, but I suck at doing the yard work, which he can do. But he likes that. So it's again, it goes in line with what your skill set is and what you like, and not try to. That's kind of what I mean. Some people might fight over who's going to do the yard. I mean, seriously, I know people who have done that.
Sure. I think it's really important that people consciously, deliberately catch their partner doing things right.
Yes.
Look
And
for everything positive they can possibly see in their partner and then verbalize everything positive they see.
yes, expect the good in a situation, right?
It's always there if you're looking for it.
That's right. I'm glad you're on the same page about looking at the positive side of a situation, because it's, you have to acknowledge if something is not good, but then how to move forward, right, with a positive perspective. And I really truly think that is key to any kind of relationship. And you do need to, I like what you're saying, give them some positive feedback, no matter, it just at random. That just is like a beautiful, right?
Yeah, I teach people to create on their phone an appreciation note about their partner.
Oh,
They anything positive at all about their partner, put that in the note, and then out of the blue to say at least daily, if not several times a day, I was thinking about you, I was thinking about X, and then give them a genuine compliment.
I love that. That is so cool. It's just random stuff is where that probably makes a big impact in that deeper connection you're going to have with that person.
Yeah, I call it the avatar principle.
Oh, I love it.
The scene in Avatar where the woman looks at the man and she said, I see you, which in
Yeah,
her culture means at the deepest level of who you are, I see and value and love your specialness. Everybody wants that in their relationship. When you
right.
catch your partner doing things right, you're demonstrating to them that you see them at that level.
Right. And that's going to definitely be more productive in long-term relationship, is being, having those positive moments. You will occasionally have negative interaction. That's
Sure.
just how life is. But then come back later and apologize, or try to make amends
Yeah,
somewhere.
you want to focus on dealing with the negative and dwelling on the positive.
And why, right? Think back maybe why you, if you reacted to something, why did you do that, right? You have to reflect on that. And I know everybody's got different opinions, and that's why I think it's okay to listen and just be empathetic as much as you
Sure.
can.
Sure. And you always want to make it safe for your partner to tell you the truth.
Yeah, that's perfect. You want to, because that way you're going to understand the foundation of that relationship. You're right, a safe space to tell the truth, because otherwise it's got to be hidden, and it's probably going to build so much more tension unnecessary.
Sure. And we want honesty, but we have to do our part, which is to make them feel safe. So I
Yes,
think most people in relationship times don't tell the truth only because they don't feel safe to do it.
I love that. I mean, gosh, I felt like I'm having a session right now with you, because it just makes me think. My mom, by the way, was a psychologist. I mean, she's retired, but she did it for, think about this, military spouses for the
Wow.
government. Can you imagine? That's some serious. That's probably why a lot of those marriages, if they're, I should say employed, I'm sorry, part of the military, it does affect those marriages quite a bit.
Sure.
And I think my mom, it was her way of healing and her way of also helping other people. She worked at Walter Reed Hospital for a long time. I mean, that's very, but tried to take the positive from, and help other people. And I'm glad she did that. And she is, again, as I've gotten my next chapter, I realize how, much the older generation learns, and they're going to be good role models. And I think you are definitely. Do you have any kids? I'm just curious.
I don't of my own. When I was 20, I fell in love with a woman with two little kids. I became instant daddy.
Okay, that's so
And it's
cool.
one of the greatest experiences of my life.
Well, that's cool. I think they also, children, they look at the world differently too. That's kind of why I like to be around them, but I wouldn't want to be a teacher. Now, that sounds terrible, but it's a different kind of connection with the kids. I like to, they give you the honest truth. Kids do. I think that's,
Yeah. And they ask, if you really listen, they ask you really, really great questions.
yes, they do.
Easy questions.
Yes, they,
Even like, 3-year-olds do.
right, because they're very wise. They're very
Yeah,
wise because
they
they
are.
really experience all the stuff that we have. And like you mentioned earlier, we don't feel safe, and we suppress a lot of stuff because we don't want to put it out there. And then that could affect your health, right?
Sure. Sure.
Wow. Right. I'm just like, this is so amazing what you're doing. I think you are tailored to help so many people. Is that the right word, tailored? And you have so many experiences with all your clients. So when you work with them, I'm assuming, is it in person or was it probably had to move to Zoom sometimes during COVID?
Everything's virtual.
Oh, wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing. I
yeah.
didn't know, right?
I used to do in person. I'm getting equally, if not better, results working virtually.
And that's good. Then you're having one-on-ones, obviously. In
And
that, oh, a group? Okay.
I actually think group gets people better results.
I was gonna mention that you're more likely to speak up or add to a comment when you're in a group. I've learned when I've involved in group stuff that I don't know, I just learned so much. You don't have to say it out loud, but you can go write it down. You make sure like the memory thing, you might want to write it down or record it. It's just
Sure.
it's amazing. I love what you're doing. So in a group, do you have like a maximum of people?
I don't.
Okay. I was just
But,
curious
but
if you had
but
like
but I have an ethic too, because I've been in groups before in coaching groups. It's really frustrating not to get my questions asked because the group's too big.
yes.
So I'll go as long as people have questions.
That is so awesome. I just love, I mean, I'm just so happy we're connected. As we're going to wrap this up, what is the most important takeaway for the listeners that you think in a relationship? What do you think you want to pass on to them?
It's really important that you practice positive honesty. That you look for that because people often use honesty in relationship as a weapon, and there's all kinds of conflicting honest things you can say. But positive honesty, which I call choice points, is that you always know before you speak how you want to make that person positively feel. Make sure what you say and how you say it supports that goal. So my choice point toward my wife is always the same. Every time I speak to her, I want to make sure that she feels loved and respected and emotionally supported.
That is
Like
beautiful.
to me, that's my integrity with myself. One of the things I teach my clients.
That is beautiful. I think you're just so, especially from a male perspective, I like your generosity. I mean, that's because we have this, what's the word, different masculinity stuff that people think what a man can do. And I think what you're doing is really helpful. It shows you that men can be generous and helpful. And you've experienced this so many different things in life, and you're putting it out there into the universe, and you're helping one person at a time. I think it's beautiful. So, where can people learn more about you, Fred?
Well, I created a gift for your listeners.
So,
It's called the Pop-Up Podcast. It's 4 episodes. And on that, you will get, I'm going to teach you every single step I teach my clients of how to never again speak from negative emotion, how to never again have another fight or argument, how to do choice points. And there's probably about 20 other skills in those 4 episodes. You get those by going to relationshipmagic.com. That's relationshipmagic.com. And that will give you access to those episodes.
that's awesome. I love that. I think it's so helpful what you're doing. And people love the audio aspect now too, because they can cook and listen at the
Sure.
same time, or they can go for a walk. Now I prefer not to have earbuds in my ears when I'm walking, so I'll do it in the house or when I'm driving. I think it's so cool. I really appreciate you offering that for the
My
listeners.
pleasure.
This is awesome. And for guys that are listening, I'll include the link that Fred just mentioned in the description. And I really, really appreciate what you're doing for our world, Fred. Thanks for
Well, thank
listening.
you. I appreciate what you're doing for our world too.
Thank you. All right. Take care, everybody.